and although at first he had no notion whatever of accepting the pleasant proposition which had been made to him by the young widow, he began to see that there were many good reasons why the affection, high position, and the unusual advantages which she had offered to him might perhaps be the very best fortune which he could expect in this world. In the first place, if he should marry this charming young creature, and settle down as a respected citizen and an officer of the town, he would be entirely freed from the necessity of leading the life of a buccaneer, and this life was becoming more and more repugnant to him every day, not only on account of the highly disagreeable nature of his associates and their reckless deeds, but because the country was becoming more aroused, and the resistance to his advances was growing stronger and stronger. In the next attack he made upon a town or village, he might receive a musket ball in his body, which would end his career and leave his debts in France unpaid. More than that, he was disappointed, as has been said before, in regard to the financial successes he had expected. At that time he saw no immediate prospect of being able to go home with money enough in his pocket to pay off his creditors, and if he did not return to his native land under those conditions, he did not wish to return there at all. Under these circumstances, it seemed to be wise and prudent, that if he had no reason to expect to be able to settle down honourably and peaceably in France, to accept this opportunity to settle honourably, peaceably, and in every way satisfactorily in America. It is easy to imagine the pitching and the tossing of the mind of our French buccaneer. The more he thought of the attractions of the fair widow and of the wealth and position which had been offered him, the more he hated all thoughts of his piratical crew, and of the dastardly and cruel character of the work in which they were engaged. If he could have trusted the officers and citizens of the town, there is not much doubt that he would have married the widow, but those officers and citizens were Spaniards, and he was a Frenchman. A week before the inhabitants of the place had been prosperous, contented, and happy. Now they had been robbed, insulted, and in many cases ruined, and he was the commander of the body of desperadoes who had robbed and ruined them. Was it likely that they would forget the injuries which he had inflicted upon them, simply because he had married a wealthy lady of the town, and had kindly consented to accept the office of city treasurer? It was much more probable that when his men had really left that part of the country, the citizens would forget all their promises to him, and remember only his conduct toward them, and that even if he remained alive long enough to marry the lady, and take the position offered him, it would not be long before she was again a widow and the office vacant. So de Lausanne shut his eyes to the tempting prospects which were spread out before him, and preferring rather to be a live buccaneer than a dead city treasurer, he told the beautiful widow that he could not marry her, and that he must go forth again into the hard, unsympathetic world to fight, to burn, to steal, and to be polite. Then, fearing that if he remained he might find his resolution weakened, he gathered together his men and his pillage, and sadly went away, leaving behind him a joyful town and a weeping widow. If the affection of the young Spanish lady for the buccaneer chief was sufficient to make her take an interest in his subsequent career, she would probably have been proud of him, for the ladies of those days had a high opinion of brave men and successful warriors. De Lausanne soon proved that he was not only a good fighter, but that he was also an able general, and his operations on the western coast of South America were more like military campaigns than ordinary expeditions of lawless buccaneers. He attacked and captured the city of Panama, always an attractive prize to the buccaneer forces, and after that he marched down the western coast of South America, conquering and sacking many towns. As he now carried on his business in a somewhat wholesale way, it could not fail to bring him in a handsome profit, and in the course of time he felt that he was able to retire from the active practice of his profession, and to return to France. But as he was going back into the circles of respectability, he wished to do so as a respectable man. He discarded his hat and plume, he threw away his great cutlass and his heavy pistols, and, attired in the costume of a gentleman of society, he prepared himself to enter again upon his old life. He had made the acquaintance of some of the French colonial officers in the West Indies, and obtaining from them letters of introduction to the Treasurer General of France, he went home as a gentleman who had acquired a fortune by successful enterprises in the New World. The pirate who not only possesses a sense of propriety and a sensitive mind, but is also gifted with an ability to write a book in which he describes his own actions and adventures, is to be credited with unusual advantages, and as Ravenel de Lausanne possessed these advantages, he has come down to posterity as a high-minded pirate. End of chapter 20.